We can't make excuses to take away from Moses. Moses done very well. So let's not come up with excuses. If you go in and ring, you're not 100%. Don't give us the bullshit when you lose.
But I think everyone's talking about, Dillian having an injury, and I think Dave probably got wind of that and thought that we're just gonna press early and see what we're given. And he was caught quite early on the back of the head and on the side. And
should Dillian Whyte have been allowed to continue? He wanted to continue. Was he saved by the referee?
Yeah, I think he was taking clean shots, unsteady. I think the referee came in at the right time.
Derek Chisora didn't hold back for a single second when he ripped into Dillian Whyte following his brutal defeat to teenage sensation Moses Itauma. With his trademark bluntness, Chisora tore away any excuse Whyte tried to cling to, blasting him as a washed-up fighter whose time has clearly expired. He made it absolutely clear that there was no controversy.
Give us the bullshit, yeah. So, but what I'm gonna say is, people always say, oh, I was not well, that's why I lost the fight. No. You didn't lose the fight because the younger man has stepped up and then you got caught. The first show which killed him was a tempo show.
About the result. No injury, no bad luck, no ring rust. Moses Itauma simply beat Whyte fair and square. Fans already exhausted by Whyte's endless stream of excuses in recent years couldn't help but laugh as Chisora humiliated him in front of the whole boxing world, and Chisora wasn't the only one. Johnny Nelson also piled on the pressure.
He's done everything possible, so he got in there and was beaten by the better man. Did he lose or did he get beat? He got beat. So it's a case of how he deals with it.
Cutting through Whyte's post-fight narrative with sharp honesty. Nelson didn't sugarcoat the reality. Whyte wasn't unlucky, and he wasn't hard done by. He was simply beaten by the better man. Nelson's words hammered home the truth that Dillian Whyte's defeat wasn't questionable or controversial. It was decisive, conclusive, and brutally straightforward. Then Eddie Hearn weighed in with his own assessment, and his words carried the sting of cold reality. Hearn, who had promoted Whyte...
Very sad, I just watched it back. He really didn't land much clean. He is unbelievable, Moses. He's a brilliant talent, but Dillian, when Dillian Whyte accepted this fight, I was very surprised. And I think probably we saw the reason why tonight. I think that's the end of the road.
Whyte for years pointed out just how shocking the decline really was. Dillian had nothing left, Hearn said bluntly. At 37 years old, coming off long stretches of inactivity, Whyte looked like a shadow of the fighter he once was. And against a fearless, powerful teenager like Itauma, he simply looked helpless. But Hearn gave credit where it was due.
Hey, listen, you got caught the head on the temple. And then after that, it was a long night for him. I'm a bit sad because I didn't want him to go out like that.
Yes, Whyte was faded, but Itauma still had to step in there and do the job, and he did it with ruthless efficiency. One southpaw shot to the temple, and Whyte's night was over. Derek Chisora mocked the whole scenario, practically laughing at Whyte's excuse-making. Years in the game and still not ready for a lefty, Chisora sneered. That's not bad luck, that's amateurish. And he was right, Whyte had no business.
Your career, at the end of your career, you'll look at your bank balance and say to yourself, you know what, it was worth it. Dillian Whyte can look at his bank balance and say, last night's fight was worth it. Did he do it for the money? He probably did. Moses Itauma is a huge name, and it would have been a massive scalp to have had, but it was never going to be the case.
Hiding behind stories when he'd been so easily dismantled. Duke McKenzie then twisted the knife even deeper with brutal honesty. He trolled Whyte perfectly, suggesting the only reason he stepped into the ring with Itauma was for money. And looking back, McKenzie wasn't wrong. Whyte had no chance against Moses. To think he could scalp the young lion was laughable. All Whyte walked away with was a swollen face, a broken ego, and a slightly fatter bank account. It wasn't a fight of legacy, it was a desperate cash grab, and fans could see right through it. Dave Coldwell added his voice, and his words cut with painful truth. This wasn't just another loss for Dillian Whyte, it was the final punctuation mark on a fading career.
It's way too much for him, and it's going to be, quite a nasty ending for him, a nasty ending to a career. I was worried for Dillian going into that this would be that fight, and it was. I mean, that. You don't get as it can't be any worse than that to punctuate a career, to end a career.
Everyone in boxing circles saw this collapse coming. Everyone except Whyte himself. He strutted into the ring with his trademark bravado, but within moments he was folded by a teenager who made him look like a slow, outdated journeyman. Coldwell said it plainly. This wasn't just a defeat, it was the ugliest full stop imaginable. A career ended not with glory, but with humiliation. Whyte has been clinging to relevance for years, but this fight stripped away the illusion. His time is finished, and Moses Itauma wrote the final chapter in savage style. Tyson Fury, never shy with words, didn't hold back either. He reminded everyone that boxing is a young man's game, and Moses Itauma just proved it by wrecking Whyte. Fury mocked the entire generation of old men still hanging around the heavyweight division.
Boxing's a young man's game and he waits for nobody. So here's the opinion, you've heard it here first. Moses Itauma will wreck all them old men out of the division. Usyk, AJ, Miller, whoever there is who's old, Zhang, fucking whoever else there is, Luis Ortiz, all these big names of the past are all a spent force. And even the world champion now, if they took my belts and give them to Usyk, Moses will wreck him. Because he's a young man versus an old man. An old man can't.
Lumping Whyte in with them. Old legs don't beat hungry lions, Fury said, and it was the harshest truth of all. Itauma's speed, power, and fearlessness exposed every weakness in fighters like Whyte. It was more than just a loss. It was a death sentence for the old guard. Buddy McGirt's reaction showed the disbelief spreading even among seasoned trainers. He sounded baffled, almost unwilling to entertain Whyte's excuses of injuries or bad preparation. Nobody buys it anymore, McGirt said. Whyte wasn't unlucky. He was floored, humiliated, and left apologizing to fans after Itauma tore him apart, and the question lingered, what was he apologizing for? For stepping into a fight he was never ready for. For pretending he still belonged at this level. McGirt's hesitant tone revealed what everyone already knew. There was no way to spin this. Whyte had been destroyed by a teenager and no train.
It was the first time me hearing it, you know what I mean? I didn't hear anything like that, so excuse me, I really couldn't elaborate on that, to be honest with you.
The trainer could dress up that disaster. Mark Tibbs, trying to be diplomatic, only added to the humiliation. He pointed out that Whyte looked in shape, but what did it matter? Fitness doesn't turn back the clock, and conditioning can't save you from young, hungry talent. Whyte's twilight years were obvious. His reactions were slow, his punch resistance was fragile, and his ability to compete at the elite level was gone. Tibbs' attempt to be kind only highlighted the reality. Whyte was finished physically and mentally. When your best defense is he looked fit but old, you've already admitted the end has arrived. Amir Khan summed it up with a line that echoed across the boxing world. Speed kills. And Moses Itauma's speed killed off Dillian, Whyte's fragile career. Nobody expected Whyte to collapse that quickly.
I thought Dillian shaped up well. I thought he was in fantastic nick. But when you're at your twilight years and you're working on your weight, etc., it's taxing on yourself, and I'm pretty sure.
But Itauma's speed, accuracy, and power exposed every weakness he had left. Khan admitted he thought Whyte's experience might trouble Itauma in the early rounds, but that illusion vanished instantly. Whyte never landed anything meaningful. Instead, he was caught cold and humiliated by a fighter young enough to be his apprentice. That was the ultimate embarrassment. Whyte wanted to prove he still had something left, but Itauma made him look outdated and helpless in less than a blink. Khan's reaction wasn't just praise for Itauma, it was a reality check. Whyte is finished, and no excuses about aches or fitness can hide it anymore. Antonio Tarver's verdict was equally damning. The former light heavyweight legend didn't hold back, saying Whyte entered the ring hoping for a miracle punch but instead got mauled. Tarver put it bluntly, Whyte's reputation was already battered from multiple knockout defeats, and Itauma smashed whatever was left. In Tarver's view, Whyte is no longer even...
No one expected it to finish that quick.
Speed kills, as you know.
Speed kills, and he had but not only the speed, he had the power with that, and the accuracy was on point. I mean, I didn't think it was gonna. I thought it'd be the opposite, where Dillian might win the first couple of rounds with his power, but I think it just shows how strong Itauma is and how powerful he is. He's a big threat in
a credible opponent. He's been reduced to a name on a resume, a stepping stone for young fighters to make themselves look good. Tarver praised Itauma's performance, but his breakdown was effectively a burial for Whyte's career. There's no coming back from being labeled cannon fodder. Once a respected contender, Whyte is now just a faded veteran, ridiculed for thinking he could compete with the next generation. Frank Warren put the final stamp on the night. He described Itauma's dismantling of Whyte not just as an upset, but as the beginning of a generational shift. Warren wasn't exaggerating. Moses Itauma displayed all the tools of a future superstar: speed, power, composure, and fearlessness. Meanwhile, Whyte looked like a relic of the past, exposed and humiliated while the new era broke through. Warren said what everyone else was thinking: if Itauma continues at this pace, he could become the defining heavyweight of his generation, spoken about alongside the greats. And for Whyte, that's the bitterest humiliation. His downfall will forever—
Whyte came in here being knocked out a couple times, wanted to see could he land a punch on this young kid, but he didn't have a chance tonight. He got mowed over, and this is a big win for a young guy. But he got to continue to fight credible opponents, and he got to get tested. He got to fight a young fighter like himself and beat a credible opponent like that, not these old, washed-up fighters that he can only just look good.
Be remembered as the night Moses Itauma announced himself to the world. From headliner to highlight reel victim, Whyte's name is now etched in history, not as a great champion, but as the stepping stone who launched the next superstar. Whyte can make all the excuses he wants, but the truth is written in bold. He was humiliated by a teenager and exposed as a finished fighter. Chisora, Nelson, Hearn, Coldwell, Fury, Khan, Tarver, McKenzie, and Warren all said the same thing: no more excuses. Whyte was battered, and his time is up. Moses Itauma didn't just beat him, he stripped away the myth of Whyte's relevance and proved that youth, speed, and hunger will always crush excuses, injuries, and old reputations. This fight was more than a knockout. It was the obituary of Dillian Whyte's career and the birth of Moses Itauma as the new face of heavyweight boxing. Fans aren't fooled by sob stories anymore. They want truth. And the truth is that
I think we're seeing history being made with him. I really do feel he's going to be a fighter of his generation and of the. I think in time, if he continues to do what he does, he will be up there with all the great heavyweights of all time.
God bless. Itauma is destined for greatness, while Whyte fades into memory as the man who got schooled by the new generation. So now the big question remains: who can stop Moses Itauma? Can anyone in today's heavyweight division handle his speed, his power, and his hunger? Or will he tear through the old guard one by one, leaving behind a trail of broken reputations? Drop your thoughts below, because the era of Moses Itauma has just begun.